Hi folks, it's me again. I'm in the woods in eastern Iowa on the banks of the Mississippi River. Now why am I here? Well, I'm here to look at effigy mounds. We've covered a lot of the woodland peoples in previous episodes, the Hopewell, the Adena, and more. But these woodland peoples, who were probably related to them or to the Mississippians, were unique in that the mounds they chose to build were effigies. And in this area, in what is now Wisconsin and eastern Iowa, contains the most effigy mounds in all of the country. Amazing sculpted figures of animals such as panthers, bears, birds, abstract shapes, and the nation's only effigy mound of a humanoid figure. Now, who were these people? Why did they choose to build effigy mounds instead of your standard earthworks or platform mounds like we've seen before? And why did they choose this area, and only this area, for these effigies when so many mounds existed in the surrounding country that were not representational of creatures, man, or spirits? These are all questions that will not be answered in this episode because I'm no scholar, I'm no academic. I just like looking at mounds and the way it makes me feel. Join me, won't you?
Mounds, 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 mounds. My name's Corey and I'm running all around. I'm traveling in the country in search of burial mounds. Mysterious, I left a secret buried underground. But will we ever know the reason? Mounds, 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 mounds.
So if you can see in the distance behind me, following the ridgeline of this hill, we have a series of 20, 30 circular mounds, very small, very short, leading in a line all the way to the banks of the Mississippi, where we have burial mounds, Hopewellian, 1,500 years old, clay, mud, peat, leaves, shells from Florida, and more layered over time over the bodies of some important people who were wearing copper bracelets, copper breastplates, and more. What is a burial mound? Well, that is a robust question demanding the kind of answer which you, average internet viewer, doesn't have the kind of attention span that explanation allows. I mean, according to my analytics, I've already lost 80% of you after this first minute. So to you, the one encountering me during a random scroll and shit while hiding in the company restroom, trying to extract as many meager seconds of the experience of living this homogenized life for yourself as you can during this bathroom break from whatever soul-crushing job it is you've willingly shackled yourself to in exchange for a few meager coins and an excuse to wear that tweed suit, I've got to explain this to you as simply as I can. That is, if you haven't turned this off already. Here's some boobs to keep your attention a bit longer. That usually works. God, I hate myself. I hate that this is what my life is reduced to. Me being a crappy and underproduced YouTube channel vying for likes and shares from you, some adult-aged, shut-in twink who identifies as an anthropomorphic and neonatal unicorn emoji lazily side-eyeing me during your mining of the internet for content to share on Reddit in order to elevate your social status amongst your broader community of emotionally handicapped, translucent-skinned, masturbating legions occupying a sea of mothers' basements. God, I barely started this thing and I already want to kill myself. Firstly, we're looking at Hopewell burial mounds, so that is the style of burial mound we'll describe. And while I explain, I'm going to show some images from older texts and diagrams that were based on excavations of some Hopewell mounds. These days, excavating burial mounds in the United States is a controversial method that is generally frowned upon. The living descendants of these people, the modern Native American, wish for these burials to remain undisturbed, and they are more than justified in those wishes. But these excavations have been done already. The diagrams and photos exist, and I'm curious, so I'm going to use them as reference. That doesn't mean I'm justifying anyone's actions, and it doesn't mean I'm taking sides in any contemporary arguments or contemporary arrogance about colonialism and perceived misdeeds in recent history that we modern people should be blamed for by association, according to you who sits on the internet and doles out your fantastic judgment on me, the plebeian YouTube content creator. These are just the materials I have, so I'm going to use them. I've surely lost all of you viewers by now. Here's more boobs. Hopewell burial mounds contained anywhere from 1 to 100 people. These buried people were typically very important people. How do we know this? Because they would be buried with important goods. Imagine you're a Stone Age person and how important natural and fabricated resources are to you, like, say, a shovel. Imagine how important a shovel would be to a Stone Age person who doesn't have a Menards or Home Depot to swing by and grab one, along with a 10-pound bag of breakfast cereal, an oil drum of cancer-causing weed killer, 2 gift cards to Applebee's, and a ramekin of dried horse semen. You say you haven't seen that for sale at Menards? It's my only reliable source for that shit, Chippy. See, a shovel is something important. I know that what's important for you is a like on Instagram or a defecation free of bilirubins, but for a Stone Age person, this is something they use every day and rely upon for survival. It's very important. It's a tool. It's a crafted and shaped tool that isn't exactly the easiest thing to come by because there's no metal or shopping malls, and you need a specific kind of stone to make it out of, and that stone is usually not endemic to the place you live in, so the stone is acquired by trade, and that stone can only be shaped into a shovel by only a few craftspeople in your tribe who have developed that specialized skill required to make one. I'm trying to impart to you how important a shovel is, okay? So Stone Age Sam needs this shovel bad. And this shovel ain't exactly easy to come by. But instead of keeping it for you or your family or your tribe, for you to use for your people's gain and survival, you bury this very important tool with your dead grandfather, sometimes hundreds of them, with the corpse of your dead grandfather deep in the mound or in the ground to never be used by or accessed by you or your tribe again. You've just taken a thing that is essential for your survival, a thing you put a lot of time and work into acquiring and using, into the earth, where it will never be used by you again. My only comparison for you, oh internet viewer, would be to imagine not saving any of the data from your smartphone onto any other computer or into the cloud and then burying it with all of your tens of thousands of oh-so-important selfies and the passwords to your Facebook and Instagram and your favorited TikToks and all the memes that perfectly explain your moods and sense of humor to your followers and all the kitten videos and all your favorite face filter settings alongside the deceased and fermenting body of your alcoholic aunt. Yeah, that thought's pretty devastating, isn't it? How would you survive even a day without that stuff? And on top of being buried with all sorts of important tools like shovels, fishing needles, and arrowheads, these very important people were also buried with very important trade goods from faraway places. These Wisconsin mounds here contain shells and shark teeth from Florida, rare stones and minerals from Arizona and Montana, and copper from Michigan, minerals from Utah, goods from very, very far away that were very hard to come by for the locals. Stuff that would have definitely served great purpose amongst the living, but was seen to be even more, far more important for the dead. But there are exceptions. Not all these buried people were the important people. In some cases, these people were buried alongside as human sacrifices. This was not a super common practice like it was, say, in Central America during the same time period, but it did happen a fair bit. If you died and a community felt it was needed to bury you with 12 other, at the time, say, living women who were quite important to the community, as the community was small and they needed these women to birth children and raise children and ensure your tribe's survival, then you were probably a pretty important person for them to kill those women and bury them with you. You might have even been regarded as a god on earth. Also, anytime you see a hippie meditating at some ancient site and talking about how spiritual the place is, ask them just how spiritual slavery, castration, and human sacrifice is. God, I hate the myth of the noble savage.
Okay, so important grave goods, human sacrifice, and important people. That's what we're seeing in a lot of these excavations. In addition, we can see a planned layout and intelligent design. There was a varying usage of materials, different types and different colors of earth: clay, dirt, stone, peat, moss, wood, all laid out in a delicate parfait. In some cases, this was done all at once in one construction, and in some cases, this was done over time, over generations. In the case of some Hopewell burial mounds in my hometown of Grand Rapids, Michigan, the mounds that inspired my interest in topics such as these, in addition to adding layers of earth over time, they also added new burials over time. Sometimes these mounds were reserved for one person, and sometimes they were like our community graveyards of today, more and more burials being added to the mound over the years for hundreds of years, and the mound growing accordingly larger over that time. Fun anecdote, a friend of mine was tasked with repatriating and reburying excavated remains from mid-1800s digs of some of those Grand Rapids mounds, as rights to the mounds were being restored to local tribes, and the local tribes wanted the remains reburied. These bones had been sitting in boxes for almost 100 years, mislabeled or unlabeled and stashed away in piles and forgotten. So as he worked with the bones, he said that while sleeping at night, he would have dreams of adults and children telling him where the bones should go. He dreamed of a child saying that he'd put her leg bones with the wrong torso, of a woman telling him her ribs were still missing, and he reordered those human remains as according to the instructions given to him in dreams. And now he sleeps at peace. Anywho, as the Wisconsin Hopewell burial mounds were added to over time, that meant these places served as community centers, places that generations of Hopewell returned to over hundreds of years of nomadic travel to carry out their burial traditions. And as we know from our own experience returning to the same place year after year, like our annual pilgrimages to Disneyland or Dave's Grease Shack for our annual allotment of horse tallow, we can surmise that these burial grounds had all the trappings of gathering spaces. They were probably places of ceremony, ritual, festival, feasting, singing, dancing, storytelling, and more. Imagine that these simple and yet perfectly effective, exquisitely designed plots of earth made of nothing but the materials abundantly at hand could serve as so much and in so many ways to the community. Hills of earth. And us? We need Target and Walmart. We can't enjoy a hill, sit on a hill and tell stories and reflect on our ancestors and life and all the joy and pain that comes with it. We need malls and theme parks and sports arenas and to dress up in weird caricatured costumes loosely based on how these ancients dressed while spinning fire poi as we listen to blast beats and EDM while hopped up on OxyContin and MMDA at events we pay 6 months' wage to attend just for a weekend, if we aren't already a trust fund baby who does this as a lifestyle and with dad's oil money, or thanks to the patronage of our OnlyFans subscribers. What a world it is that we have built on these people's ashes and their hills.
Behind me, our first effigy mound. Little bear mound in the shape of a little bear. Now, of course, we must ask ourselves why effigy mounds, because just like, let's say, the Nazca lines in Peru, these shapes are only readable from the air. This looks like nothing more than what? A series of lumps. And just look behind me. They go on forever and ever and ever. Just.
And what is an effigy mound? Well, they were burial mounds like those made by the neighboring Hopewell, but they were constructed in the shape of animals, symbols, or humans. They were representational. And although they were being made at the same time as the Hopewell burial mounds I explained earlier, the way they differed is that these effigy mounds only ever contain 1 to 3 people, often buried at different time periods, and that they never contain grave goods. There were never any items contained in the effigy mounds other than the people themselves. So these people, The effigy mound builders seem to have a more egalitarian view of humanity, whereas the surrounding Hopewell seemed to think that a person needed to take goods and other people with them into the afterlife. These effigy mound builders didn't think any of that stuff was necessary. They thought those goods were best used by the living. This is an important distinction in understanding who these effigy mound builders were. But they took their symbology seriously, far more seriously than the Hopewell and their conical burials, because these people buried their dead inside of symbols representing bears, panthers, lizards, and eagles. What the hell does that mean? To me, it means that these people were abstract thinkers, that they were artists, that they had a direct connection to the spirit world, and the vessel that took the dead into the afterlife was an important thing. They didn't need to take goods from this earth with them to the spirit world, but the vessel that carried them did need significance. And this style of thinking, this very progressive and spiritual style of abstract thinking, happened in an area of the world that no one in their right mind would think of today as a place of artists, spiritualists, and intellectuals. Wisconsin. That's right, folks. The state, which is now known only for the fact that it contains 41 of the top 50 drunkest and most alcoholic counties in the whole of the United States of America, of a place that makes most of our mainstream and easily palatable, inoffensive and barely flavored cheeses, a place where people get into violent fights over football, a place where teenagers cross state lines to legally murder protesters with easily obtained automatic weapons, is also pretty much the only place on the earth with effigy mounds. There are a few here and there in the Northeast and the Southeast, but nothing like the tens of thousands we find here. These people who made complex burials containing symbology of the eagle, panther, and bear buried amongst an occupying nation who now regard those same symbols as logos for sports teams and nothing more.
So this very small one is probably one you'll be able to make out. If you see over my shoulder, distinctly you see two sets of legs and a round head at the tip. This is a small effigy mound of a bear. Bears. Well, what do we know about bears? Well, they're indiscriminate eaters. That's what they are to me, at least. They're omnivores. They see no difference between plant, animal, mineral, vegetable. It's all food to them. Why me, these leaves, those berries, could all be a meal for a bear that right now is lurking in these woods and watching me. But they are objective, indiscriminate eaters that see all things as equals in their eyes, a potential meal. Not stalking and hunting predators, they simply reach out, grab what they want, and take it. And just like the indigenous peoples, their habitat is dwindling as more and more Americans take up their land to build 7-Eleven, Quick Stops, Targets, and Five Guys burger companies.
Nobody likes the polar bear. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Everybody fears the grizzly bear. They point and stare. They point and stare. Nobody out there to cuddle me. No one to brush my hair. I'm just a lonely teddy bear. Nobody cares. These paws were made for hugging, and this snout was made for kissing you. But since Werner Herzog made Grizzly Man, they lock up their trash cans, hide all their honey jars, bury all their berries and plants off their backyards. No more sweeping pools, time for guns and schools. No more toilet paper ads.
life, during the time of King Herod, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt, and Assyria the work of my hands, and Israel my inheritance." A warrior riding his chariot pulled by a single horse, an Egyptian queen.
And you will honor me.